Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Welcome, beloveds, and welcome to those joining us for the class, into this class for the first time tonight. My name is Rabia Rashida Faid, and I'm Mujahada for CD, which means a spiritual caregiver and leader with the South Florida community. And I'm also a co-founder for this nonprofit, the Unity, Peace, and Prayer. And we're very, very excited to have Dr. Jaffe, Ibrahim Jaffe, with us tonight. Dr. Jaffe is a physician and Sufi master healer and a spiritual guide, Murshid, pioneers spiritual healing, the integration of Western medicine and spiritual practice to heal disease and improve health. Ibrahim has merged traditional medicine, including its diagnostic capabilities and treatments, with spiritual healing to provide a comprehensive system of relief to those suffering from disease. In addition to being recognized as a master healer and a teacher within the Sufi tradition, he has studied and traveled worldwide, many countries, including he was teaching also at the United Nations and at Harvard Divinity School. Ibrahim's significant accomplishments include the foundation or his foundation of the University of Sufism, and he's the past president of the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, and he helped to build the Mother Center in Polk Valley, California, which is the heart of our Tariqa, our spiritual order. Ibrahim carries the deep love and wisdom. He helps those seeking God to walk more deeply to reach the potential God has placed within each. Through the strength of his inward seeing, Ibrahim helps us come closer to our Lord. He's guided our community throughout many changes, and he's a pillar of light, love, during these times of confusion in our planet. He inspires us by his beautiful example of being steadfast, patient, and a man of surrendering. His willingness to serve for the face of God helps us continue to strive towards see this vision of having the flag of unity all over the world, especially in the United States and over every home. At the program's conclusion, I will wait till the end and I'll mention that. So now welcome Dr. Jaffe. I think the floor is yours. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
Thank you, Rashida. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very delighted to be with you, the people on the call tonight. We're going to be reading a story about the Mujahada, the striving and the inner battle that goes on for people. It's a very, very deep reading, not an easy one, but I think a really, really beautiful one. So I just want to give you just a little background about how I hold Sufism, just because everybody has their own lens, and I certainly have my lens in the way I look at things. For me, I believe that the heart of the Sufi is the heart that is always present with the law. And so for me, we say Allah looks to the hearts. And so when he looks to the hearts, what is he really looking to? He's looking to see, is the heart pure enough so that the heart can perceive him? That's what he's really looking at. And I believe that that is the number one thing that all of us are here to do. We're all here to purify those places in our hearts so that we can look to Allah. That's the first thing. Secondly, I want to say that if we break divine law and we don't follow the laws, then we're constantly tripping ourselves up. So it's very important for us to understand what is divine law and do our best to follow it, and not to make any major blunders, because if we make those major blunders, then it takes a long time to heal those places. So the second thing is that we carry the action level, that we're really in tune with divine law. But again, I want to say that for me, there are times that people are not in tune with divine law, but their hearts are really in the right place. And I think that that is very, very commendable. And I'm a very strong believer in the hearts and the law together. Secondly, the third thing has to do with purification. That I believe that in order to reach these states, we have to purify. And that without purification, it's very difficult to reach the states of unity. when Sidi says, I want to see the flag of unity flying over the whole world, it's not just that people believe in the unity, it's not just belief, but it's also a place of inner experience of oneness that the person has found or is reaching inside of themselves. So this is very important that that people learn to find that unity inside their heart through purifying, whatever is within them that isn't necessarily in the right way. So finally, we have to learn to walk. Walking means to walk through the stations, the 28 stations of this tradition that lead to the world of unity or hakika, so that people are walking through those stations on their return. So it's a learning of walking in that deep state of return. And finally, the last thing is what I call building the house of God inside of our heart. In order for us to reach the state of unity, we have to build the house of God in our heart. People talk about, well, what is the house of God? What does that mean? Well, the house of God, in my understanding and experience, is basically a structure. It's literally that we're kind of rebuilding the light inside of our heart, from the light of our own heart and our own self to be the heart that carries the light of Allah's attributes and the light of Allah's truth within it. So the house of God is when we rebuild our heart in a mirror of the divine reality inside of ourselves. And this is the highest. Now, how Allah helps us to do that is God puts us into what we call difficulties. And in those difficulties, we see our own weaknesses. We see the place that we have our own hurts, our own wounding, our own limitations inside of us. Now, when you find those places of limitation, which we all find, then you have choices. The first choice is just to go with it, forget about it, and just do the bad thing. That's what most of the world does and has led to the big mess the whole world is in. The second thing we can do is be aware of it, but not really do anything about it. And this is the state of most spiritual seekers. They're aware of their problems, but they don't do too much about it. And then the third state is those who are aware of this, of what's going on, and they call themselves to task. They sit down and they say, this is what's going on inside of me. How do I make this right by Allah? How do I make Allah happy with me? And so they're in the quest of understanding, what is it that God truly wants? What is it that God is truly asking? They call themselves to task before Allah. I think this is the highest, and this is what we're all striving to do. So this reading tonight is very much about those third people. We're going to be talking about how you become one of those third people, how you actually reach that place of spiritual striving where you are essentially purifying out what's not right inside your own being, recognizing what God is asking of you, and changing your inner being to be a mirror of the divine reality itself. That is called Mujahada. So we're going to be talking about the Mujahada tonight. Okay, so that's the basic overview that I wanted to give everybody. Not too much, just very simple things. But from this, we're going to go into Sidi's reading on these things, and we'll be talking a little bit. This is from page 180 in the Arrival book. For those of you who don't know it, this book here, the Arrival book. And you can, if you don't have that book, you can get that. I'm sure Sarah can give you the way to get this book. It's a wonderful book, and it's extremely, this is the real methodology of how the Sufi makes fana, how the Sufi annihilates themselves. For me, it's really the kind of the key book that Sidi wrote in many, 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 many ways. I love this book. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to talk about Mujahada in the presence of the real. Mujahada in the presence of the real. Okay, know that, know that spiritual struggle, or mujahada, is to burden the ego self, or the nafs, with physical toils and to oppose the self's lower passions and in general what the ego self desires. Okay, take that in, everybody, for just a moment. Let's sit with that for a second. Okay, so In Sufism, we have two basic things that move us. We have Mujahada, and we have what's called Jedba. Mujahada means striving, and Jedba means relaxing. Okay, so if you're thinking like you're trying to travel down the river towards the ocean, sometimes you have to swim very hard because you're having to go around rocks and trees and who knows what. Other times the current picks you up and just takes you. Those are the two ways you move down the river. So in this teaching, what we really want you to do is we want you to learn to be able to have jedba, in other words, to relax and learn how to relax inside yourself and allow yourself to be pulled by the magnetic attraction. That's the highest and it's the easiest. But the more common is spiritual mujahada, struggling with your nafs. This is very important. And so we're going to be learning about this, okay? Struggling with your nafs means you are literally purifying or polishing what's in yourself to become the divine mirror. It's like taking a mirror, which is rusty, you know, because in the old days, the mirrors were made out of metal. They didn't have glass mirrors, they had metal mirrors. And so what happened is the mirrors would get rusty and they'd look in the mirror and all they would see is rust. Couldn't see anything. So they would take a polishing rag and they would polish and polish and polish that mirror until the mirror began to gleam, and then they could see the reflection of themselves in the mirror. Well, in the same way, we have to polish the mirror of our hearts, which have become rusty with bad actions and things, bad thoughts, bad feelings. And when we polish it, it becomes the mirror of the divine existence. Okay, and that mirror of divine existence means that you are carrying deep inside of your heart that state of undifferentiated oneness. It means the light of God is shining inside your heart. It's reflecting inside your heart. It's shining. Your heart becomes this brilliant light, glowing and glimmering with the divine attributes and divine knowledge and divine beauty inside of it. And this is what we're trying to reach, to become this state of divine beauty. Okay, so now he says, Mujahada, the spiritual striving, is to burden the ego self, the nafs, with physical toils. Okay, what does that mean? He means fasting, he means getting up in the night, and he means keeping your actions pure. Okay, what does that mean? Fasting, it means to fast twice a week. It means cutting down on your food, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of your stomach, 1/3 water, 1/3 food, 1/3 air. Keeping yourself in a state of openness. You're fighting with your nafs. Getting up at night so that you're not sleeping all the time and missing the opportunity, breaking the hold of the ego self through food and sleep on our spiritual nature. Okay, so the first thing is you are burdening yourself with physical toil. So everybody on this path, hopefully you're doing some fasting twice a week, you're limiting your food, and you're trying to get up in the night, even sometimes when you're tired, and you're doing the remembrance, and you're breaking the hold of the sleep. Because Shaitan works through sleep. You break the hold of the sleep on your body. Okay. He goes on to say, the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, the spiritual warrior, the mujahid, is the one who struggles against his nafs. Now, this is the second understanding. First, physical toils, and second, to oppose the self's lower passions. Okay, to oppose the self's lower passions. Okay, what's the self's lower passions? Well, in a way, what he's really talking about is the need for materialism, the need for the senses to have what they want, the need for connection to other people, acceptance and tribe, the need for power, oppression, domination, or victimhood, and the need for loving what one wants rather than loving for the sake of pure love itself. This is essentially the essential reality of what he's speaking. See, and I know we all want that. We want to have what we want. But you have a choice. You get to have what you want, or you get to actually strive against what you want to open the door of spiritual knowledge, spiritual light, and spiritual meanings. You can't have them both. People want them both. Unfortunately, today it doesn't really work. People say, oh, we can have everything, do everything, and have God. And the truth is that by doing that, they actually stay caught by the things that they want. You have to free your awareness and your consciousness from your body and from yourself and from your desire nature. Okay, so whoever passes away from his lower passion has found life and release from misguidance, and instead has found true gnosis or knowledge from God and release from ignorance. Okay, and this is really, everybody, this is like one of the key things, because when you're following yourself, you know, what ends up happening is the self catches you and it makes mistakes again and again and again and again and again. But when you start to follow the light of God, it's like God illuminates your way. And in that illumination, you don't make those mistakes again and again, and you don't go around the wheel again and again and hurt yourself again and again. Rather, you see the illuminated way through the forest. You see, this is a much, much higher way of being. So the secret of walking through this is learning to follow what Allah gives you. You see, what Allah gives you will always be better than what you have yourself. It will always be better than what you have yourself. It doesn't mean that we're always going to like it. In other words, what I have found is that, and this is something that it took many years to get to, but I finally realized that when Allah said something to me, it was for my highest good, and the outcomes were always better than when I followed myself. Always, always. So then I started myself might want to go one way, but then God would come and speak inside of my heart and go another way. And when I would look the other way, maybe I didn't want to go that direction. It wasn't something I truly wanted to do. You know, there's something else. I remember when we purchased the Pope Valley property out many, many years ago, back in '97. How many years that has been? 23 years. And I remember I looked at this old property and the old broken down houses. The houses were falling over. They were full of mold, and birds and bees and ants. And I thought, oh my God, there's no way that we can ever live on this property. And I remember the city came in and he said, Allah wants you to buy this property. And as he said it, it was like this incredible light descended from the heavens. And I said, oh my God, you know, on the outer, the place is terrible. It's the last place I ever want to live. But on the inner, it will open the descent of this higher light. Make your choice. Make your choice. So I chose in that moment to make the choice to go into the land and buy and purchase that land. Okay, and it was not easy because the outer was such a mess. Okay, it's very important as you're working to learn to really follow the spiritual gnosis that God gives to you. And not to make, you know, a lot of times what we do is we look at the gnosis, but then we put a veil over it. Like we literally put a veil over our face. So we're looking at true light, and then we put on some glasses and say, no, it's really like this. You see, we change the Gnostic reality to be what we want. Okay, when you change the Gnostic reality to be what you want, what's going to happen is that you're going to end up changing your reality for yourself. In other words, what you change is going to be what you want, but it's going to lead you down the same old rabbit hole of pain and suffering. When you trust what Allah brings you and you follow what Allah brings you, Allah takes you out of the rabbit hole, and He gives you the freedom and the understanding and the upliftment of the spiritual worlds. You get to be uplifted into the spiritual worlds. You get to experience real joy. You get to experience true peace. You get to experience freedom beyond anything you have ever known in your life. You get to experience nur, light, enlightenment beyond anything you've known in your life. Allah will lift you up. He'll teach you what the meaning of things are, why they're happening. He'll give you true knowledge or understanding of reality. This is really the greatest gift, this true wisdom, understanding, and knowing of divine reality. This is what we're seeking as Sufis to reach to have that true gnosis, to have that true wisdom and understanding, along with the witnessing of the reality of our own hearts. The reality, God's reality. Okay, let's continue. He says, so whoever passes away from his lower passion of the senses has found life and release from misguidance, and has found gnosis and release from ignorance. You see, we're often driven by our bellies. Our bellies, first of all, they want food, then they want the tribe, then they want material security, then they want sexuality. Our bellies drive us in ways that keep us prisoners. We have to go beyond the power of our bellies to the truth of our hearts. The definitions of striving differ among the people. As for the folk of Allah, they said that it is to exercise one's energy in purifying the self and not to fear the censure of any censurer. Okay, now this is a very, very holy thing. Okay, so when you're traveling to Allah, one of the key teachings is not to fear the censure of anybody. Okay, this is a key teaching. This is something that everybody might want to practice. Now, there's different ways of doing that. You know, some of the old ways they used to do it, they used to take their shoes and they put their shoes on their heads and they'd walk around the market. Everybody thought they were crazy. Why is this guy walking around with a shoe on his head? You know, he must be, you know, some kind of mental disorder. Well, what they were trying to teach people was how not to care about what people think about them. Okay, if you have cares about what people think about you, then you are still a prisoner to other people. You see, you have to learn to go beyond caring what people think or caring about what they dislike. Now, if they dislike you because you're breaking divine law, then you have something to answer for yourself. But in the deepest way is learning to be free. The only thing that you want and that will really be important to you is what God thinks about you, what God cares about you. So you're turning your consciousness to the reality of divinity itself, and you're allowing the reality of divinity itself to be your guide to follow what you want. I remember, you know, for me, many, many years, I had turned to Sidi, and I was looking to Sidi to basically approve or disapprove, or you know, what he was my reflection. And so whatever I felt like Allah wanted, I looked through his heart. At one point in my walking, I realized that I had put him in front of Allah, and that I had to look directly to Allah for that guidance, not only to Sidi. In other words, to learn from Sidi, of course, and to listen and everything else. But there comes a point in your walking, and this happens when you are around the point of unity, when you reach the unity. At the point when you reach into the world of unity, then you have to put God, your guide then has said, look, you have found the hakika, the truth. Now you have to look to the truth. Now, it's not that you let go of the guide is there to help you walk further, but you have to look deep, deep, deep at that truth and really follow that truth. And I remember that day, I thought to myself, you know, Allah, what do you want? And Allah said, go and sit with Sidi at dinner tonight, even though he was wanting to be by himself, is what I heard. So I looked, what I heard people said, he wanted to be by himself. But when I looked to the light of Allah, the light said, go and sit with him. So I went and I walked through the door where he was eating, and I sat down at his table. Everybody was furious with me. All the people around him said, you violated our rules. You violated everything. And yet, Sidi looked at me for a moment and he said, Ibrahim, he said, Allah spoke to you. He told you to come and sit. You followed him clearly. Alhamdulillah, sit down and have dinner with me. You see the difference? You're following the guidance directly from Allah. Okay, so as you're walking this path, the first thing you want to follow is you want to understand these books, and you want to try to be able to really follow these books, and you're there to really be able to follow this way. You know, understand the teachings, follow the teachings. The second thing is, if you have a guide, you listen deeply to your guide, and your guide is there to help you. You know, and your best chance in these cases are to listen deeply to your guide, because your guide sometimes will see things that you may not see in yourself or understand yet. So rather than fight with your guide, try to hear what's being said. And then if you walk into the world and you start to reach the world of the secret, then you start listening very, very deeply to Allah. You listen very deeply to Allah. You listen very deeply to your guide. And you say, what is Allah asking of me? And you begin to follow that deep knowing of the truth. Okay, now your guide will still be there, because at times even the person of the truth has places to learn. The guide stays and continues to help you and support you by showing you the places that you may not know of yet. So don't throw the guide away yet. That's something that you will throw the guide away eventually. There comes a point where you become your own guide, and that's a station. And if that happens, then you transcend that state. But until that happens, allow the guide to be there to support you as you go deeper and deeper into the state of divine truth. Okay, very good. And in a way, you never really throw the guide away. The guide is always there to help you. CD will always be there to support you deep down. Okay, so let's continue. The definitions of striving different among the people. As for the folk of Allah, they said that it is to exercise one energy in purifying the self and not to fear the censure of any censure. Also, it is to render assistance to the self and to the oppressed one through applying oneself to the laws of Allah. Okay, so you're supposed to follow the laws of Allah as deep as you can. So one conforms to his commands, as the Prophet has spoken, peace and blessings be upon him, and all that have brought it through, all the prophets, and they refrain from what Allah has prohibited. He gives to everything its due right, and he aids the oppressed one by helping him retrieve his lost right. Okay, so now you have a very important piece of the walking of the path. If you follow, as you walk the path, follow and understand, what did the Prophet prescribe and what did he forbid? You see, do your best to understand what he gave and what he forbid, and try to follow that as close as you can. And also, if you see that others are oppressed, where their oppression comes from things that Allah has forbid, then you should try to support them and help them. Okay, so think about this now. We've got some really important pieces here. Physical toil, lack of sleep, getting up in the night, fasting, working with our food, first thing. Okay, that's called Mujahada. Second, opposing the self's lower passions, the belly. The passions of the belly and the passions of the senses, what the senses drive us towards, that take us away from God. Okay, so the second thing is opposing lower, egoistic, selfish desire from our lower self. Okay. Third, to allow the opening of divine guidance and some gnosis, if it begins to appear to you, and to follow the light and the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Fourth, to exercise one's energy in the purification of yourself. Okay, working to purify the self. When you see things in yourself that aren't right, you're working in the process of purifying yourself. Okay. 5, following what Allah commands and avoiding what he forbids, and helping others to have those rights if you see them being taken away from them. Okay, so again, some really beautiful, beautiful teachings here. Okay, so he says, whoever strives inwardly, meaning to fight one's inner self, then Allah will bequeath him in success in excellent actions on the outer. So isn't that interesting? if you change your inner reality, your outer actions will become pure. Okay, think about that. Let's say that your outer action is you tend to be a backbiter, a slanderer. This is, gossiping. This is the big three that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, spoke about, that humanity is constantly getting caught by those three: backbiting, gossip, and slander. Okay. And let's say that you have that problem, which many, many, many people do, actually, honestly. Okay. Now you can try to stop it. You can force yourself to stop backbiting and gossiping, but you see, deep inside your heart, you might stop your action, but inside of your heart, it's still going on. Deep inside of your heart, you're still gossiping and backbiting and even thinking along those lines. You see, inside of you, it's going on, even though outside you stopped it. But if you actually go inside and you find the place that is wanting to gossip and you purify it, gossip doesn't happen anymore. Your actions become pure. If you find a place inside yourself that wants to slander, this place where you tend to speak badly about, and you let your tongue go wild and you let yourself speak badly about this and that and the other. You see, if you go in and you purify that place inside your tongue will be at rest. You will not speak in that way anymore. It literally will disappear. So when you purify the inner actions of yourself, the outer actions will follow. So this becomes now very important for you to be conscious of your own inner reality. You have to be aware. What did the Prophet say? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command? Don't backbite, don't gossip, don't dishonor. And the third thing is to become conscious of yourself. You have to watch inside yourself, look inside yourself, be conscious. What's going on inside of yourself? What is happening inside yourself? Take your time, look in yourself, and hold yourself up to the prophetic standard. You see it? And when you fall down, which you will, we all do from time to time, then go in and make astaghfirullah al-azim, tawbah, and wash away those places that fall down inside of yourself. Okay, now that doesn't mean it's easy, but you can do it. All right. Whoever strives inwardly, Allah bequeaths him success and excellent action on the outward. And whoever joins excellent outward action, conduct, and inward striving together, then Allah bequeaths guidance to him in accordance with his words. And those who strive in us, we shall guide them to our path. For verily, Allah is with those who excel. Okay. All right, so think about it. I'm going to just review this to you. Okay, if your outer actions and your inner reality become pure, we say your Sharia, the divine law, your Taraka, your heart, your divine inner being become pure, then God will give you true gnosis, the true understanding that comes from God itself. This is the highest understanding. I remember one of our beloveds, I've told this story, was swimming, had gone to Thailand to go swimming. You see, and they were on the beach. They arrived in Thailand on the ocean, and they were there. And that night they had this dream. And in the dream, Sidi, coming in the world of pure knowledge and gnosis, came to them in a dream state and said, "My beloved, you must leave Thailand now." See, he was showing the gnosis of one who balanced the inner and the outer. Okay, he was showing the gnosis of the one who balanced the inner and the outer. Okay, now, when he did that, the person said, "No, I just got here, Sidi. I don't want to leave Thailand. So they went out and they did. That night, the second night, they had a dream, and in this dream, Sidi was red-faced, and he was striking his stick, and he was screaming and yelling, "Get out of Thailand." It was so powerful, she said, that she woke up shaking, trembling. The dream was so powerful. Okay, now again, remember what was happening. The divine knowledge, the Gnostic understanding was moving through Siddhi into the world of imagination, into the dream state, and it was directly speaking to her from the world of knowledge. She woke up in the morning, she was terrified, she was shaking. She said, "Okay, Siddhi, I'll leave." She got on the plane and she left immediately. She got the first flight out after that. She pulled out and she left. That afternoon, or I believe it was later in the day, that day, the major tidal wave that hit, Indonesia and that whole basin in there, Thailand, that killed all those people, came in and it absolutely destroyed her village. The village where her hotel was completely wiped out. Everybody was killed. Okay, so you see, when you learn to have the balance of your outer actions and your inner reality inside yourself, Allah opens the door of gnosis, divine understanding, to you in your spirit, and then you can then help people, including yourself, with that divine knowledge. Okay, so that's something we should strive towards. Imam Junaid, one of my favorites, was asked, what does the disease of the self become? When does the disease of the self become its cure? He replied, when the self opposes its passions, for the self is that which strives against the self. When you find your heart with Allah, then be cautious of yourself. And when you find your heart with yourself, then be cautious of Allah. I just absolutely love that. Let me read that to you. When you find your heart with Allah, then be cautious of yourself. And when you find your heart with yourself, be cautious of Allah. Okay? Boy, that's the whole path summed up in one sentence. Alhamdulillah. Know that the believer who treads the path of self-refinement moves first from worship, ibadah, to servitude, ubudiyah, and then from there to complete adoration, abuda. Okay, so these are the three states that the traveler moves through. Ibadah, ubudiyah, ubud. Okay, so first you worship God. Then you become his servant when you really have the understanding that begins to flow from him. And then you have complete adoration, which means that you're actually witnessing his reality, witnessing his light, you're witnessing his attributes, and you're in the state of perpetual witnessing, that inner witnessing. Worship is for those who strive. Servitude is for those who excel in bearing hardships. And complete adoration is for the people of witnessing. If I can sure feel your hearts struggling with this one. Okay, so maybe we take a second with this. Okay. Allah, 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 Allah. Okay. So first thing is your heart. Okay, your heart needs to worship Allah. Worshiping Allah means that you put Allah as your king, and you bow to your king, you worship your king, you follow what your king tells you. That's worship. Okay, but servitude is much different. Many people worship the king, but service means that you're closer. When you reach into servitude, now you're closer. There's an excellence. There's a sense of that you are aware of the inner dimension of Allah. You're beginning to be aware of Allah's light, his movements, his breezes, his currents. You start to become aware of how God speaks, how God moves, how God talks, how God is. There's no consciousness of the inner reality of divinity itself. We say, if you don't see God, God sees you, but the side of it is that it implies that it's possible that you do begin to sense God's presence. You begin to feel the light of God inside of you. Okay? And then the third level, of course, he says is adoration, but what he means by that is that it's in rapture, that when you become close to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you begin to feel the intense beauty of his lights and of his reality and of his essential truth. And when that happens, the ecstasy, the desire to be close, the adoration is so powerful that you can't stop being with him. It's the only thing that makes sense to you in your life. So you have this complete adoration of his reality. Okay. So worship is for those who strive, servitude is those who excel in bearing hardships. Okay, and complete adoration is for the people of witnessing. Therefore, worship is the practice of the common people, meaning they do their 5 prayers a day. Okay, and if you're not doing your 5 prayers a day, you're probably missing something of the worship. Okay, you really should do the worship. And when you do your prayers, you should try to be present. Try to be present with Allah's light. In other words, try not to go into your mind, get lost. I've done prayers myself where the prayer has gone over and I'm like, oh my God, was I even present in any of this prayer at all? I was not here at all. Okay, if you find yourself and you're just spacing out in your prayers, you have to bring yourself back. You have to call yourself back. After every word you say, like in your Fatiha, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you should be saying that to God, listening for the light of God, feeling the light of God, being present with the light of God in every word you speak. That's how you get the highest barakah out of your prayer. He says, worship is the practice of the common. He said, but servitude is the practice of the elect, the people of Islam. And complete adoration is the practice of the elite of the elect, the awliya, the friends of God. In addition, striving is focused on emerging from the self. For the self is the greatest veil between you and Allah. Your self covers you up. You're saying if you're a self that wants to please other people, this is a big one for some of you. You're so busy trying to please your husbands and your wives and your kids and your parents and everybody else in the world that pleasing in you is keeping you from direct presence with Allah. If you're with Allah, this is the right way to be. So you have to cut that veil, break that veil in yourself and go forward. Listen to Allah. It doesn't mean that you're not polite. It doesn't mean you don't care for your husband or your wife. It doesn't mean that you don't follow what's needed. But deep down in your being, you're first and foremost with Allah. He says, in addition, striving is focused on emerging from the self. You need to get out of yourself. For the self is the greatest veil between you and Allah. It is narrated that Abu Yazid al-Bastami, one of the great Gnostic knowers of Allah, said, I station myself among those who perform the ritual prayer. People would be praying the prayer in the masjids, but I did not see a place for me among them. Isn't that interesting? The people are praying, but when he looked for himself, he was in a way beyond the prayer. Wasn't that he wasn't praying, but his consciousness was soaring in Allah, and the people were in worship. They were bowing in worship and separation, and he was present. And he said, how can I be with people? Excuse me 1 second, I'm so sorry. That was actually supposed to have been turned off, and I don't know why the phone is doing that. I really deeply apologize. I will turn that off now. Let me close that down. So, anyways, astaghfirullah al-azim. Okay. As you go forward, let's continue with Abu Yazid al-Bastami. He says, I stationed myself among those who perform the ritual prayer, but I did not see a place for me among them. And then I stationed myself among those who fast, and I did not see my place among them either, because they were fasting to gain proximity. He was living in the state of proximity itself. So he said, Oh, my Lord, how does one attain to you, meaning to complete knowledge of you? And he responded to me, God responded to him, leave yourself and come to me completely. Leave yourself and come to me completely. And listen to this. Not only, you see, he asked God and he heard an answer from God. You see, he was in a state of witnessing, of deep proximity. He was hearing answers from God. God was speaking to him. He was speaking in a way that he understood. God spoke directly to him. Okay, God will speak to you as well in that same way when you walk and you break the veils of the self. Now here he was telling him, in this case, the man was already a very deep Gnostic. So he was saying, how does one attain you? What he was really saying is, how does one attain perfection inside of you? How does one reach to the state of perfection? And he was saying, leave yourself and come to me completely. So there was something still holding on in him. We must also clarify here that to achieve the states of annihilation in Allah and connection to the higher power, the traveler of the path is in need of contact with intellect, the heart, and with awareness, perception, and deep love. All this requires discipline, excellent walking, and treading the path of the real. In our path, the Shadowliya way, we say that all of the striving that the follower, the Murid, undertakes has as its goal and intent the complete and direct immigration and flight of the follower to Allah. For with us, the Shadowliya, spiritual striving, Mujahada, is based on beholding Allah in all things. Alhamdulillah. Let's talk about this last paragraph here, and then we'll just open it up for some questions and answers, and maybe we'll do a little bit of reading. But this is a very important piece here. He says that we must clarify here that to achieve the states of annihilation or fana in Allah, fana fi Allah, and connection to the higher power, to Allah's divine essence, the traveler, the salik, is in need of constant striving. Okay, so see, he's telling you, you have to strive with yourself. You have to work on yourself. This is part of our way. You have to work on yourself. You have to strive. You have to think about things with your mind. Understand. What are you trying to understand? What does Allah want? What did the Prophet say? Peace and blessings be upon him. What are the teachings of Sidi? What is Sidi trying to share with you? What are your teachers trying to say to you? What is the mirroring going on? What is God trying to show you? You're striving with your intellect. You're thinking, what is God trying to teach me? Okay. With your heart, it means feeling. You're striving. What is my heart doing? Is my heart feeling right? Am I demonstrating patience, the attributes of God, love, wadud, the attributes of God, goodness, al-bar, the attributes of God, salam, the peace, the attributes of God? Is my heart at peace? Is my heart full of love? Am I demonstrating true mercy? You see, you're holding yourself up, because every situation that comes, you're in traffic, somebody cuts you off, you're caught, you're impatient. What is Allah showing you? As-sabur. He wants you to learn patience. Somebody comes and they treat you badly. What is Allah trying to show you? Mercy. Are you learning to be merciful? Or you strike out against that person? Or do you have the mercy in your heart? Okay, if somebody treats you unloving, are you able to bow down and prostrate in love and be able to hold the love while people are not being loving? Can you be the lighthouse of love when everybody else is being the lighthouse of selfishness? Can you hold the love? You see, this is what Sidi's saying. he says, strive with your intellect, strive with your heart, strive with your awareness. He's saying to you, become aware of what's going on inside of you. Look deeply. Really look at what's going on. Look at what you want. Look at what you're desiring. Look at what's driving your actions. And then if it's not from the highest, then drive your actions by the highest. Let Allah purify those actions, purify those desires, so that they become the highest. What's the highest action? To be the servant of what Allah wants. That is the highest action. To follow the inner reality in a way that Allah is happy with us. This is the highest. Okay, he says, and with awareness and perception and deep love, meaning to bring love into everything we do, to carry the love. This is really where Sidi was such a great teacher, because he carried such deep love in everything he did. May we learn to carry that love as well, that we really carry that deep love. Remember, these teachings are not just from the third eye. It's not just the opening up of our minds. A lot of what we see in the Eastern paths, it's also bringing it down into your heart, dropping it down into your heart, feeling the love inside your heart, feeling the sabur, the patience inside your heart, the salam, the peace inside your heart. But most important, the big two, love and mercy and compassion, really. Love, mercy, and compassion. Those are the biggest ones that you follow those inside. Okay. And he says that all of this requires discipline, excellent walking, and treading the path of the real. Okay. Excellent walking, meaning complete yourself, walk completely, and tread the path of the real. What does it mean, complete? I remember, I was with Sidi for 20 years. And in that time, I have to be honest with you, I really saw almost no mistakes. Almost everything I saw was perfection, really. Now, one time towards the very end, there was something that happened. I don't remember what it was, but there was one thing that happened that just had the slightest something in there. And I remember I faced him with it, spoke to him about it. He listened. I think he felt some sadness about it, and we walked away. That night, he did whatever he did. In the morning, he came out of the room, and I looked again to see this place that the day before had upset me. And all I saw was the most incredible, pure, perfected, shiny, absolute sparkling light. He had cleaned that place in a way that was beyond anything I had ever seen in my whole life. I had never seen anybody. I've seen many people walk, many people make tauba, but I had never seen anybody clean it with the level of cleanliness that he cleaned. It was exceptional. Okay. And I learned from that there's a whole level of cleaning that is of the absolute highest. So when Sidi says here, the goal is walking and treading, is excellent walking. That's what he's talking about. And treading the path, meaning go forward and allow yourself to walk the way. And he says that in the Shadaliya, we say that all of the striving that the follower undertakes has its goal and intent in one thing: the complete and direct immigration and flight of the follower's self to Allah. Okay, so here it is. There's your complete understanding. Every single thing we do in this path is the purification of itself from the hold of this reality and the outside and ourselves and our maps, and our flight and our running to God's light, God's attributes, God's presence, God's oneness, God's witnessing, and allowing ourselves to become present only with that. This is the true goal of the Shadaliya way. This is how this system works. Okay. And he finally says, for with us, the Shadaliya, spiritual striving, or Mujahada, is based on beholding Allah in all things. Okay, and this is the secret of our path. Spiritual striving, Mujahada, is based on beholding Allah in all things. What does that mean? It means that whatever happens to you, look inside and behold Allah. Whatever happens to you, go inside, look inside, say, what is Allah asking of you? What is Allah wanting from you? What is beholding Allah? What is God saying to you? Once you understand it, you'll see that God is asking you to strive against yourself. He'll say, okay, you were in traffic, you became impatient. You were in traffic, you were impatient. You look to Allah, you say, Allah, I'm stuck in traffic, here I am. Keep thinking of LA traffic, it's the worst in the world. You're stuck in LA traffic, so bad, moving along at 2 miles an hour. You go to Allah, Allah, what is it you want me to learn? I'm beholding Allah in this traffic. Okay, in that moment, Allah says, clean the place of impatience in yourself. In that moment, you Mujahada, you strive against your impatience, you clear that impatience inside yourself. And in that moment, you find yourself the beacon of patience, and you're happy, and you're joyful, and you're deep. Now you've really you've understood Allah. So when he says, finally, he says, with us, spiritual striving or Mujahada is based on beholding Allah in all things. And what he isn't saying is understanding what Allah is asking of you in all things, and then making Mujahada or striving or purifying yourself, striving against your selfish inclinations, because those things are against Allah. Glory be to the Most High. Okay, so I think we've said a lot tonight. We've really talked a lot. I think you're doing really well. I know that many of you, I see many of the numbers of people here I know that people are walking very, very hard. And I know also that this is a very strong time for people, that this is a time where a lot of people are having very, very deep difficulties on the inner. They're really struggling with their inner self, really hitting up against things. This is normal. This is in Sufism, we say we're coming at the Rajab. This is the time where it is a time of sadness. It's a time where many, many things over the world happened over the years, which were very difficult. So during this time, there's often depression, and there's suffering, and there's pain. So please just take your time and work with it, and know that you can overcome this as you go further. Okay, so I think that's all that I wanted to say. I think we're going to open it up for some Q&A at this time, because I know I've been talking for a long time, and we have about half hour left to go. So if anybody has a question, you can, I guess you raise your hand, if I remember. I'm not sure how I think if you go to your...
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibrahim. Now it's, if you like to ask a question of Ibrahim, please just raise your hand, or you could write a question on the chat, in the chat room.
Yeah, in the chat room, everybody, if you open your chat, it says raise hand in there. So if you go to the chat room, you can either write your question or you can hit the raise hand button.
There's a couple of hands raised.
Okay, Alima, do you want to open one of them? You can choose whoever you feel.
Yeah, Alima, the host.
Yes, let me go ahead and open. It looks like the line for Nasheen Ali. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum salam, Nasheen.
Can you talk a little bit about love for CD? I feel as if I'm stepping into that now, and it's so overwhelming in a beautiful way. And I would love to hear about the process of how that moves from CD to the Prophet ﷺ, listening to CD, then listening to the Prophet ﷺ, and then ultimately completely being centered on Allah.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting phenomena. Like as we walk the path, there's a stage where the love for your guide becomes very, very strong. And that's a good thing. You don't want to stop that. The only thing is you also don't want to make your guide your guru. So you have to be careful because there's a difference between a guide and a guru. In the guru, one totally embraces the guru and worships the guru. But in the guide, one totally falls in love with the guide, but the worship stays with Allah. You see the difference? Now, of course, but there is a big difference here. In this state of you falling in love with your guide, you love your guide completely, but you remember that your guide is a doorway to Allah. Okay, and that's the difference. So don't lose that. Now, many people do, and I've heard CD many times. They would say, "Oh, CD, you know, you're so amazing," and CD would say, "Allah." He was like saying, "You're turning to me when you should be looking to Allah. Don't put me in front of Allah, or Allah will ask me about that." And so that's a big reminder for everyone to remember that no matter what happens, even after Prophet Muhammad died, what did the people say, right? He said, you know, he's a prophet, but who do you worship? Allah, right? You worship Allah, only worship Allah. Okay, so the first thing is, and the love for your guide is very helpful. Love your guide completely. He's like a beloved for you. He can be like a beloved, not in the body, but a beloved in your heart. You know, a beloved in your heart where you love him completely. Then in that state, you're still worshiping Allah. Now, if you do that, the love will help you walk through the stations. You'll go deeper. Okay. And then as you go deeper and deeper, all of a sudden what will happen is you will actually discover that inside the guy's heart is the spirit of the prophet. Not just Prophet Muhammad, but actually all prophets are all there. But Prophet Muhammad is also there. You're walking this path and Prophet Muhammad is your messenger, then this is the one you're going to go to. Okay. So in that moment, you see the spirit, you will actually experience the spirit of Prophet Muhammad inside your guide. In that moment, you actually fall in love with Prophet Muhammad. When you do that, you'll experience that Prophet Muhammad transcends your guide. Prophet Muhammad's beyond, further. And then you'll have the same love affair with Prophet Muhammad. Okay. But then again, even with Prophet Muhammad, sometimes people want to worship Prophet Muhammad, or they want to worship Jesus, or they want to worship Moses, or whoever it is. You're not to worship them. You have to remember that your worship always stays on Allah. Don't ever lose that connection. The worship is with Allah. The love may be, you may love your prophet, you may love your guide, but your worship is only for Allah. Okay, and then if you continue walking that way, deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll merge with it's like the light of the prophet will literally come inside your heart. You'll feel the prophet inside of you as the deepest beloved, and then all of a sudden, the veil of that will disappear, and as that disappears, you'll find the light of God directly. You'll actually start to experience God's light that was emanating inside the prophet himself, and that becomes your true understanding. So this is what we're trying to do, is to reach to that state. Getting a lot of noise from somebody. I don't know. Maybe somebody's got their line open.
Assalamu alaikum. We've got a couple more hands going up.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can. Nasheen, does that answer your question for you?
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Good question.
Okay. Rumisa, do you still have a question for Ibrahim? Not sure. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you haven't already.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Yes, I still have a question. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Jaffe. Thank you so much.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I was hoping that you could expand a little bit on the lower, like the senses and lower desires that you were talking about. Can you talk about laziness in particular?
You're running into some of that in yourself?
Oh, me? No. Very much, yes. Especially with prayer, with salah.
Yeah. You know, it's really a shame because we all get lazy with salat. I noticed that, a lot of people, I've seen it myself as well, where You know, the adhan comes in and it's time to pray, and you just, you know, just 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and then a half hour, an hour goes by, and next thing you know, you're catching your prayer 4 minutes before the next one, you know, and you've blown that whole time. Well, you know, the interesting thing is that when the prayer comes in, that's a holy moment. Like when the prayer comes in, it's very, very holy. And if you catch that moment when the holiness happens, there's like extraordinary secrets that are given to people. There's purification that comes in, there's healing that comes in, there's elevation that comes in, there's divine happiness that comes in, there's gratitude, there's barakah. There's so many things that come in when we catch the prayer. And when we get lazy, what the lazy is really our nafs being attached to the world, right? It's our nafs saying, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to take action. I don't want to have to pray. You know, I want to have my lunch. I want to have my dinner. I want to do this thing. And we let that laziness go again and again and again inside of us. And what ends up happening is we actually miss these extraordinary moments. And, you know, life goes by, you know, it just goes by, and every day you miss them. You're missing, it's like you could be giving yourself such sweetness and such healing and such ascension, and instead we're letting our nafs slack us and we're falling inside. So the key is to really start watching that perception. You have to watch inside yourself, and you'll actually see the place in yourself that is lazy. You know, all of us, it's not just you, everybody has it. And when you find that place of laziness, then you want to purify it. You want to strive against it. You want to say no to it. You want to say astaghfirullah al-azim. You want to purify it. Is that laziness will disappear, and then you'll start to run to the prayer. When that happens, you know that you're in the right state. You know, and I pray that everyone, all of us, has that place where we run to Allah and not get caught by laziness.
I mean, thank you. Would you say that that laziness for prayer manifests as laziness in other aspects of life as well?
Yeah, I think that our nafs are lazy. Some people have lazy nafs. You know, some people have the opposite. They have like type A nafs that are just crazy and working all the time. So you kind of see different things. The people with lazy nafs usually have a good time. They're not all that successful in life. Most of the time, people with type A can be very successful, but they just don't have much joy in their life whatsoever. You know, both of them are not so good. So what you want to do is, again, watch laziness, you know, really closely in yourself. And when you find it, really stamp it out, because, you know, life is short. And I'm not saying be type A. I'm saying be present with Allah, follow Allah's actions, you know, promptly with excellence, and don't be lazy and don't sloth. You know, sloth is like considered one of the major sins, right? Yeah, very welcome. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. There's 2 more questions, Ibrahim. Would you like them?
Sure, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, it looks like if you can unmute your line, a Texas phone call ending in phone number 66.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. This is Rauf Abdullah.
Alaikum salam, Rauf Abdullah. How are you?
How you doing, Ibrahim? You know me from the land.
Yeah.
You know the Rauf. Yeah, how you been?
I'm good. I'm actually really good. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Well, I took this course tonight, you know, remembrance we forget, but
Yep.
I've been feeling the last, you know, several days, several weeks, just I don't feel near to Allah, which is, you know, the title of the subject tonight. And
Yes.
you know, my fasting, you know, like my food's fine. I pray, I make dua, I'm up at night. I feel far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way I haven't before. And I don't know if it's my bipolar, which I have, or what. Like, I can feel some of the love and light in my heart, but like, it's like my mind's like, can't connect like to the heavens anymore. It's just like, I don't feel Allah like I used to.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing this all over right now. It seems it's like across the board. I think that something's happening, you know, and again, I think that this has to do with what's coming. This you know, this time of the Rajab. This was a time when, you know, many of the companions were killed, And,
No.
you know, it was a really bad time in the history. And
Yeah.
I think what's happening is the sort of the depression of that's hitting people's hearts, and they're struggling. But you know, again, and this is it takes really like a lot of meticulousness. But if you watch, don't fight with it. I mean, but just watch this, the separation, watch the distancing inside your heart. Really feel the absence of God's presence, feel the distancing, feel how painful it is to be far from God, feel the loss of it. Really, really kind of taste it. And then really make dua, asking Allah to return you, and then make astaghfirullah azim, you know, deep dua. I'm not just saying, you know, Allah return me, but make long dua, 5-minute dua, 10-minute dua, really asking Allah, you know, raise your hands, ask Him with deep sincerity, my Lord, I'm so far from you. I can't find you. My heart is veiled from you. I don't know what's happened. And you ask Him, please take me back. And then you sit, you make astaghfirullah. I think what you'll find is Allah will lift you up higher than you were before. And when you return, what you'll find is that everything will resolve, and you'll find yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. What's really happening is that deeper levels of Allah are opening to you. And in that deeper opening, what you're experiencing is separation.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck with it. Well, may He ease your way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. It looks like a Florida number ending in 525. You could unmute your line.
Unmuted. Hi, Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim. It's Iksan.
Alaikum salam, Hassan. How are you?
I'm good. What's been happening at the end of my day, and this has to do with Allah's giving me a very strong teaching, working where Daryl is, you know, being where Daryl is and bringing the light there. And I'm asking how to protect my heart more at the end of the day, and it's not just there. I'm feeling the enormous amount of sadness, and it's like my heart feels the pain of this. And as far as being close to God or separate from God, this place is like Awakenings. Do you know the movie Awakenings?
No, I didn't see
where
that.
they were all, they were all kind of catatonic, and they had a drug, and they all came to life again, and then the drug didn't work, and they all went back to sleep. That's kind of like the experience as I go there, and I put music on, and I just, and anyway, and I watch them remember God and come out. Like with Daryl, it's amazing. I come there and he's like all withdrawn and everything, and by the time I leave, he's singing, and it's really something. How do I protect my heart and do this work? You understand what I'm asking?
I do understand. When you start to work with people like you're doing, your heart starts to go deeper, then Allah will put their burden in your heart. Every teacher of Allah knows this, that that we often carry, some of the burdens of others. One time, Sidi, people often say, "Oh, if you're really with a God, you don't feel anything. You're always joyful." That's not true. That's not true. As you become a real servant of Allah and you go deeper, Allah will ask you sometimes to carry the pain and help the people. He asks that of His beloved servants. Okay, when that happens, that's what's happening to you.
It is so uncomfortable. It is so deep. It is very difficult. And anyway, what can I do to?
You've been asking for this. Okay. You wanted to go deeper, become a true servant, and so when you have that, you're going to carry sometimes the pain of others. But what you have to do is when you leave the people, you go home and you sit. with your beads. You remember the name, and you say Allah, Allah, Allah. And as you do that, the pain of those people will come up inside of you. You will see it, and you'll understand it. And then as you continue Allah, doing your dhikr, the pain will slowly evaporate, and it'll slowly disappear. And it won't just disappear for you, it'll disappear for them. So Allah will make you work. You know, this is something I learned a long time ago. I'd come back from workshops. I was in so much pain from the people. I would sit from the time I would get dinner, 6 o'clock, till 9 o'clock at night, Allah, Allah, 10 o'clock at night, Allah, Allah. And slowly, slowly it would evaporate. Sidi, he would walk out every day of those teachings he did. He'd go to his hookah and he'd work for hours to clear out what he had picked up from the people.
On the other side of it, sorry, I'm getting so emotional. What I see is is my mother, and what's happening in her transition is just amazing. Anyway, so I see that other side of carrying the pain and then being able to let go of it, and then watching the change in her. Anyway.
That's all you can do. This is the walking. This is a walking of the way. Because the servant of Allah is there to serve the people. It's not. We're not here for ourselves. We're here. To, a lot of people. I'm going to transfer myself and reach Allah and know the unity. That's great. But are you also holding the people? Are you serving Allah? Are you serving the people? Are you washing their feet? Are you helping them with their pain? If you're not doing those things, I really don't think you're going to reach Allah. You have to be doing those things. You have to be in service of helping people. Okay?
Thank you, Ibrahim. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, what do you think, guys? Should we wrap it up? We're a few minutes early, or what would you like me to do?
There's, Assalamu alaikum. There's 2 more questions that have come in, Ibrahim.
Oh, okay. Good. Go ahead.
Melody Pryor has her hand up.
Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah. Hi, it's good to see you. Alhamdulillah. I have a pretty established habit of getting up early in the morning and doing the morning practices, which works really well for me, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering about is in the evening. Because I do get up so early in the morning, by the evening I am usually really tired. And if I try to do remembrance or weird or something, I have a tendency to fall asleep doing it. And I was just wondering about, like, maybe, I feel like part of it is I don't feel like really settled into like what practice to do in the evening. My heart kind of feels like I want to do something to kind of just end the day with Allah, kind of be in that energy before I go to bed. So I was just wondering if you had any suggestions about what kind of practice to do in the evening.
With you, I actually think you might want to spend some time reading the Quran. You might want to actually sit with the readings a little bit, and you could work with Sidi's tafsir books, because the tafsir books really explain in the Mujahada, like the symbology of each of the teachings. Like this today on our advanced Sufi walking class, we were reading about al-zalzala, which is the shaking, the trembling that happens when the earth splits open at the time of resurrection and the souls come out. And Sidi went beautifully into how at the time when one reaches the hakika, that the spirit breaks open and the hakika arises out of the person's being as they tremble in that final last almost process of releasing themselves. So the teachings are very powerful. And I think that maybe what's happening is you're in a way needing a little bit more maybe intellectual stimulation. Your mind is falling off, and that might just drive you through it enough, and then you'll stay awake, you'll get the transmission of light from the teachings, and then go to sleep for your salah.
Okay. Yeah. That feels good. I like to read, and so sometimes read other things in the evening, so that would be good. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, Alima, is there anybody else, or is that the have we completed everybody?
Let's check in with the caller that's 626 area code, phone number ending in 83. Do you have a question? If not, I'll go. We'll mute your line. You have a question, beloved? Okay, Ibrahim, you're probably good to go.
Okay, if you want, I can complete the reading, or if you prefer, we can go ahead and finish up. So what would you like me to do? I'm open to either way.
I think it would be great if you could complete the reading.
You would like that?
I think, yeah, that would be great. We still have like
Okay.
9 minutes.
Okay, Professor.
Oh. That's not, I quit.
You'll never quit. Once a professor, always a professor.
No.
Okay. No, actually, I was kind of wanting to complete it myself, so I'm glad you asked.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this last part. He says, so he, I'm on page 181, so he, the Most High, is the one who takes charge of the affair of the Murid, whether it is in his decreeing that he follows the stages of ascent step by step, or whether he bestows his grace, his jedba on him and attracts him to him, and thus causes him to directly attain knowledge of him and realization of his oneness, without undertaking on his part the toil of ascent through the stages and decrees that make up the path. See, at times, Allah, I think actually seen this with many beloveds, that Allah initially offers them jedba. He opens the door, and all they have to do is say yes. They just have to say yes, let go, say yes into the current, and he just takes them. So if that happens to you, say yes, just say yes. Don't miss your chance. He says, know that the veil over the unseen is the existence of faults, and thus purification from faults opens the doors of the unseen to you. Okay, now this is a really very powerful statement Sidi is making. He's saying, listen to what he says here, and know that the veil over the unseen means the hidden inner realities. And he says that the veil over the unseen is the existence of faults, meaning faults of action, faults of the heart, faults of the soul. And thus purification from faults, if you purify your faults, it will open the doors of the unseen to you. See, some people say you can never see the unseen. The unseen cannot be seen. But you see, the unseen, the doors of the unseen can be opened in a certain way. You'll never see the unseen like Allah. You'll never see what the Prophet sees, peace and blessings be upon him. But you can have knowledge, certain knowledge into the unseen. And this is what he's talking about. And thus purification from your own faults opens the doors of the unseen to you. The spiritual dominion of the Al-Malakut of Allah is denied access to everyone save the one who has been clean from the blemishes of the lower human nature by taking on the character traits of Allah and passing away from other than him. Okay, so he's saying, if you want to know the Malakut, you want to be able to perceive that world of existence inside yourself and outside yourself, then you must purify your nature. You must take on the character traits of Allah, and you must pass away from other than him. And by being verified in your servitude, by conforming to the divine commands and surrendering to the divine decrees. So if you attain to this, then you have a wide open door into the unseen and a dwelling place in the world of the Malakut. When the heart of the traveler is present and he is absent from his nafs and his own individual illusion, then he would not find other than Allah. The meaning of this is that when the traveler, the salik, completes his mujahada against his lower self, he will arrive to true gnosis, and illusion, wam, will leave him. He will not find in existence any reality but Allah. There is a difference to us and with some of the masters of the path between gratitude and striving. So we ask, what is the difference between the path of our master, Imam Abu Hassan Ash'ari, which is founded on gratitude towards Allah and intimacy with Him in joy and His gifts and blessings, without any toil or great exertion, and the path of Imam Ghazali, which revolves around spiritual training and discipline along with opposition of the lower self and great exertion and toil? Are the two paths in agreement as to spiritual discipline, or does our master Imam Abu Hassan Ash'ari command his students to gratitude after the proximity gained after discipline? The answer, the path of shukr, the path of gratitude, is the origin. It was the path of the prophets and the pure ones. The path is founded upon the worship of Allah, sincere servitude, and freedom from all selfish gratifications and portions, and upon feelings of incapacity and inadequacy before Allah, which causes the heart to ascend towards Allah. And when Allah knew of their truthfulness in their walking this path, He rewarded them according to His generosity with openings to His knowledge and gnosis and His illuminations and acquisition of His divine secrets. When the people of spiritual training and discipline, who are the people of spiritual striving or mujahada, came to know of the illuminations and unveilings which these people of gratitude achieve, they set out to make that achievement their goal through means of invocation, dhikr, asking forgiveness, ritual prayer, continual solitary retreat, halwa, and other types of spiritual striving until they achieved whatever they achieved. In the beginning of the path of gratitude, the fleeing and emigration was towards Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not to illuminations and unveilings, and the achievement of spiritual stations through exercise of spiritual struggling. In the path of gratitude, illumination comes to the slave without great burdening on his part or inclination towards it, whereas the slave on the path of struggle is in a station of seeking repentance and regret and asking for forgiveness on his sins, and illumination comes to him through this state. In addition, the path of gratitude relates to disciplining the hearts by keeping them at the door of Allah and by fleeing to Him during movement and stillness and distancing oneself from heedlessness. Whereas the people of spiritual striving, when they strove, they tasted, and when they tasted, they became intoxicated, and when they became intoxicated, they witnessed. Then they were repleted, and they acted and ascended. Then arrived, then annihilated, then subsisted in Allah, for Allah, by Allah, and with Allah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, everybody, so I'll leave that last part for all of you to contemplate about the path of gratitude and the path of striving, because he spoke about the Shadaliyah actually as a path of striving and mujahada, but there is a path of gratitude as well. But in this path, really, in a way, you have gratitude always, and you have striving. So it's, in a certain way, it's really a combined path of both in my experience. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that was helpful for everyone, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for this outstanding presentation and teaching. Thank you so much. My beloved, I have one announcement, is to ask the new people who just joined us for the class today to sign up, please. We have still 7 more classes coming up, and that's happening every Thursday. So please sign up, okay, and donate whatever you can, and we thank you so much. And Ibrahim, thank you so much for your help and your contribution and your outstanding teaching. And I will say good night, and please everybody say thank you to Ibrahim.
Thank you,
I hope to see you
Ibrahim.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Ibrahim.
You're all very welcome. Your thankfulness touches my heart. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Assalamu
Makes it all
alaikum.
worth it. Alaikum salam, rahmatullah, barakatuh.
Night.
May Allah
See you
bless
soon.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.